Ladies and gentlemen, the Agnipolitanian studio. Here is Agnieszka Rojek and an interview with a Scientologist. I'll be covering two roles, the role of the journalist, the interviewer, and my own, instead of Agnieszka Rojek. So, quite untypically, because with a bottle of beer, I don't drink normally, but today I decided to make an exception with a pack of cigarettes and a list of prepared questions. For the start I have 10, then we can have a break. Let's start. Agnieszka, do you have the consent from the church to give that interview? That's before we start. Actually, I haven't asked. So, are you not afraid? Considering my situation, I think I should use my freedom whenever and wherever I can. Do you have any consent to drink beer? It's a drug in Scientology, isn't it? Yes, it is. Well, I have never said I'm perfect. Okay. What is your Scientology story in short? I have family in Canada and they are Scientologists. And I believe this is how Scientology arrived at my life. We always, perhaps not all of us, but many of us, ask ourselves the question if Scientology would have found us had it not been for this or that person. I mean, if there's really something truly Scientology like, or Scientology, something of the Scientologist identity that makes the whole universe work so that we would arrive at this or another place where we can join the church. Personally, I believe that I have this kind of connection, but in my case it's unclear, or there have been many clashes. Okay, so could you somehow present your experience in a few sentences? Okay, specifically, I went to Canada for the first time when I was in the primary school. I think it was the 7th grade, or perhaps after the 6th grade. And then I spotted those funny faces or some shapes. That was the tone scale. It was very colorful, and it was on my aunt's table or drawing desk. I liked it a lot. I did not talk much about Scientology at that time, but I believe that this was really the first connection. And then years were passing by. When I was in the secondary school, my uncle came to Poland and he brought me a book, Learning How to Learn. He spent the whole day with me going through the book. So that was the first contact with the Scientology as it is. That is the start of it. So the technical knowledge of how one learns in Scientology. I liked it a lot. He left me some money for a dictionary, but the one I bought was not good. And somehow I did not become become involved at the time. A few years passed. I went to Canada again after the second year of my studies at the university, and then I got interested in some books. I started reading them. There was self-analysis and self-analysis actually. And I also went to an event, so that was the first contact with an organization. I think this was when my brain was cut through by a person from FLAG. I had an interview. And I came back to Poland with the Scientology handbook as far as I recall. And I did not get involved in Scientology at the time either. Sometime later, I think, my uncle sent me The Way to Happiness and asked me for translation. He routed me to FLAG. But I did not get involved at the time either. And so it went until 2001, when my father died, and I went through a nervous breakdown. I started visiting a psychotherapist who wanted to send me to a psychiatrist and to put me on drugs, but I refused bluntly. My condition was deteriorating with each visit to the psychotherapist. So my aunt decided to do something about it and asked my uncle to come. We talked over the phone, and he gave me some suggestions. He told me to go for walks, to look around, to notice things, and somehow I got out of all those thoughts that were so disquieting or depressing or detrimental in other ways. I became quite cheerful, and then we did PTS handling. Okay, Agnieszka, what is a PTS handling? This is special technology that has to do with the situation when a person becomes suppressed, that means squashed in a way, or knocked out of his or her personality, or impaired in life due to some influence that is detrimental to the person. It is spotted when a person roller coasters, as they say. So, like you have this kind of movement in life. And there's a technology for handling it. There's one must identify the person, and one needs to do one's ethics handling, that is to see what one has done that one shouldn't have done by some code, or what one has not done, which one should have done by some code. And this one goes through this, which has a specific form. The forms time, place. I'm not sure what it is called, but the arrangement of things, the event, which implies the consequence. So, for instance, I told a lie about my friend. About my friend Yuzia Constable. So, on the 55th of March 2098, I was talking to a policeman, and he asked me if Yuzha Constable was a prostitute. It was at the police station. I was sitting on the chair. The policeman was sitting behind the desk and writing a report. As a consequence, Yuzha was accused of prostitution and got a criminal record, which resulted in her death after 5 years. So it's an example. Of course, everyone does it their way. It takes some intelligence to see the logical cause and effect links. So I did this write-up concerning my dad, who had passed away, and other situations in life where I had not been ethical, and I came out like a newborn baby. I was very happy. Then I decided that I would become a professional Scientologist and help people. Still, there was a historical situation that changed my perception of Scientology in my life, and it was the attack on New York. It had a strong impact on me, and I decided to solve the problem of terrorism. So at the time I decided that I would use Scientology to get trained to be able to achieve that purpose. In 2002, around February, I went to St. Hill to do my volunteer minister course. I spent there a few months. During the time, I underwent suppression from the squash, in the wake of which I signed a Sea Org promise. So the promise that I would join the Sea Org. And then I went back to I came back to Poland. After a few months, I came back to St. Hill. I wanted to complete my volunteer minister course, but instead of that, I got on the EPF as soon as I reached St. Hill, the St. Hill Castle, and went through some procedures. From the EPF base in the area near St. Hill, I traveled to Budapest to do part of the training, then came back to St. Hill again. I went for my fitness board, that is the examination, after which one joins the Sea Org if one passes it. A few more weeks and I was dismissed. When I was dismissed, I was not aware that I was being dismissed. I learned about it a few weeks after my return to Poland. So what did you do then? I was shocked. I didn't know what to do actually. I was reading through the letter, and I was a bit scared because it was like, oh my God, what's going on? especially the circumstances of my living St. Hill were quite hostile and quite, well, they were terrifying. I had no idea what was happening at all. And I don't know, I just decided to leave it for some time and see how the situation is going to develop. So were you angry? Actually I was, because I think the strongest feeling at that time, apart from this total disorientation, was shame, because I was quite honest about my going to St. Hill and my enthusiasm and talking to my friends. And even after return from St. Hill that summer, I was still talking about Scientology and St. Hill. And then I got this dismissal, so this is like, my God, I feel a sort of stupid, you know. But I had had a lot of good experience, so I knew that something was essentially wrong with the whole situation. But I hoped that in time it would resolve, and I was expecting the church to take the steps to repair the situation. Have they? Unfortunately not quite the reverse. So do you have a sense of belonging to a cult? Do you still belong to the Church of Scientology, by the way? That is a difficult question when asked formally. I had only an introductory membership, which started with my arriving at St. Hill in 2002 to do my volunteer minister course, and it's half a year as far as I recall. But then at one point I heard that if one joins the Sea Org, then one has a lifetime membership, but I don't remember reading it anyway. And you know, in Scientology you say, well, if it's not written, it's not true. So as far as belonging to the church is concerned, I cannot say. I have not been involved in any training or auditing or whatsoever other consultation since 2003. I have received some phone calls, but this is like you meet someone in the street, and it does not mean that you have a formal relation with the person or the organization to which the person belongs. But I consider myself a Scientologist, because the definition of a Scientologist is someone who uses Scientology. So this is the exact definition. If you use Scientology, you are a Scientologist, no matter the formal qualifications. And I do use Scientology, not exclusively, but when I feel like or feel the need for it. Alright, so do you have a sense of belonging or having belonged to a cult? I did not have this sense like, I have become a part of it. But I think that the community shows some characteristics in their conduct. Well, the first sense of culture I got was when I went to this event in Canada. So it was around 1987, and there was the video from David Miscavige. So he went on this on the stage, and everyone was ah! So, I mean, so okay, they are there, and there's the event, but when it starts happening in a place where they are just watching the event, it feels really very, very weird, and you do have a sense of there being something wrong with the people. So I did not like it. I hated it, actually. But then I had this interview, and when I had this interview, it somehow went off. But then when I was at St. Hill, I remember the time when I was ordered to go to the mass. Someone said, "Why are you not at the mass or something like that, in the temple or in the chapel?" And I was like, "What?" And I really didn't want to go to that mass, so I was actually forced to go there, and I didn't like that. So that gives you a sense of some enforcement, and that brings the association with a crowd. I certainly had a sense of there being something essentially wrong with the people before my leave. So at the time I did feel that the whole group had gone insane. They probably hold exactly the same opinion about me. I think that, well, I watched the video opening the Scientology network, the new Scientology network. And the person acting as David Miscavige does say that LRH was God. I have never viewed it that way. For me, he's a great person, perhaps of divine qualities, but not God. So there must have been some shift. I did not feel forced to believe LRH was a god when I was at St. Hill or in any of my readings. I'm not sure. Does it answer your question? Not quite. Basically, I would like to know if you have ever had a sense of being thrown into that culture that sucks you in, or where you lose your own identity and become a member of a group with a certain mind control mechanisms, some inability to think behind the defined lines of thinking. Have you ever had a sense that someone was interfering with your freedom of thought? I mean, when you are in a group, for example, you live in one base, this is different from just coming to do a course or to get some auditing. But if you are in the group and you are living together in the base, you are together all the time, day after day, you actually can go to the town nearby for, I don't know, 2 hours on Sunday, and every corner you meet another person from the CR. So you are never out of the group, so to say. perhaps you can get some leaves, but I remember once I went to the cinema, but I did not free at all. Actually, it felt pretty weird to be in the cinema. So there's certainly a sense of sucking in. You were asking about this, like being a group. But as far as thinking goes, let me light my cigarette. You know, when you do your EPF course on the study tech, there is a practical which has to do with learning. So you have the practice of how can this be true. So for example, you read a line and okay, this is a piece of data, and then you are to think of examples which make this piece of data or this particular datum true. And years later, when I was thinking of it, I thought that in the normal learning process you should have, okay, now find examples that show how this could not be true. Because if you have only one line, so this is like your mind is set on proving the truth of this particular line. So you read it like, you know, like the word of God, actually, like you read the Bible. And you need to decide how you want to treat that. Because on the other hand, you have the datum in Scientology that if it's not true for you, it's not true, which gives you this total freedom to accept some data and to reject it. And I do think that you have the exercise of accepting and rejecting, the practical of accepting and rejecting some data too, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure if I was reading about it or actually practicing it, but I think there is there is practical of that sort too. But you know, on this level of cognition, I think that this is a missing element. Now, as far as brainwash goes, I must tell you that I was never undergoing that heavy push of videos. Like, you know, okay, now sit there and watch this video, and you have to watch it 7 times because you need to know it like that. I can understand how this can become a routine, a perfection now. Because, for example, this is the flag standard. So you need to know, if you are to help someone, you need to know your job so well that, you know, this comes like that. Like, you know your ABC. So, you know, you have to go through the ABC many times until you know it like that, and it's perfect. And then you don't need to repeat the whole alphabet to open a dictionary and find the word, because you know immediately that this letter is after this letter, and you don't need to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so I can spot it easily because I have the problem with the Russian alphabet all the time, which I have to learn again and again and again. So, you know, I have never learned correctly. So you can view it this way. But on the other hand, my personal feel is that, I don't know, I somehow cannot imagine myself, you know, being told, okay, so watch it again and again and again and again and again until you can repeat it word by word or whatever. So that would give me a sense of brainwash, I think. But I have never experienced it myself. Okay, let me rephrase the question. have you ever been led in your thinking or in your judgment of a situation into a particular viewpoint, perception of events or of the situation, interpretation of it? Has anyone superimposed an interpretation of a situation on you? Well, certainly there is a problem with the best thing you can do in life is joining the Sea Org. So this is really a hard push. And I do believe that there is something wrong with it, because this is why I have problems with the Church of Scientology. I went there to do the volunteer minister course, and the push started. So, you know, this is very heavy. And I actually signed the Sea Org promise as a result of that push. I mean, eventually I was suppressed, but you know, it was going on and on, so I could not focus on my study because there was this nuisance coming all the time. You have to join the Sea Org. The best thing you can do in life is joining the Sea Org. There's no better solution for life than joining the Sea Org. So this is like, you know, this is brainwash actually. Even if they believe in it, I mean, you know, you need to have the space for your study. Okay, so maybe we can leave it at this. Have you ever been forced to become a Scientologist or unbecome a Scientologist? I have never been forced to become a Scientologist. I liked it. I had a lot of, as we say, affinity. So, you know, this was something that I would agree with a lot. That was not a perfect overlap. So, but then I also learned that I was incorrect in some cases. For example, I have a button on psychology, because I had been interested in psychology before I started studying Scientology, and I liked it a lot. So when I started reading that all psychology is bad, and like, my God. But you know, recently I have undergone the treatment and you know, all sorts of processes connected with psychiatrists, and you know, psychology is a step towards. So I can understand how the group works and how the originally noble person can become what do you call it, in the machine. Well, I don't have it here, but you know, when you have, like, you have this a kind of wheel, and it has like, and you know, so like you are part of the mechanism and you just move mechanically. So I believe that this is what can be happening to psychologists too. Don't you think that you could say it as well about Scientologists? Actually, I do. As a matter of fact, I do. But you know, because you know, when you ask me about the cult, the way I view it is that you have a group, and this group can become a cult, can become self-suppressive even, can become all sorts of crazy things and ways. But it does not mean that it's written into the codes of that group. So the way I see it is that if an organization, if the group of people in an organization started acting like that, it it means that they have gone into some mechanism and they have lost the ability to self-determine their actions. So they have somehow lost the ability to assess situations independently. And if you assume that each of these people should be an OT, which is an operating thetan, that is a cause over time, space, energy, time, thought, and life. So you know, you can think of, oh, how you are going to control the whole world. Well, why don't you start with yourself? So are you able to think for yourself, or do you have, you know, wiring of that or other sort, or not wiring but some other implants? The way I would view it is that if something like that is happening in the Scientology organization, then the organization has gone unethical, and that it's really usually connected with the people having misunderstood something. Alright. So, have you ever been forced to be? You have not been forced to become a Scientologist. No, not at all. It was absolutely my choice, and it was really, you know, it was enthusiasm. Like, wow, so this is what I'm going to be doing in life. And how about unbecoming a Scientologist? Because I know that you have some problems. Well, some problems is quite an understatement. So you know, I have had a sense of there being a strong push again in the church for getting rid of me. You know, to create the situation when I sit down and write the divorce letter. I use the word divorce metaphorically, of course. I did have a sense that I was being forced to unbecome a Scientologist by the church. So then, like, you know, they want to get rid of me. They will create all sorts of problems for me, so that I would say, okay, enough is enough, bye. Now, how do you feel about it? Well, I certainly feel that my trust has been misplaced. But, you know, I mean, what can you do? You have this knowledge, and I was thinking of it on many occasions recently. So I'm bright, I'm educated, I'm ethical. So I don't really need those people to be checking if I'm doing alright. When I study, I can get books. But then, when I recall my experience, and when I remember how I was reading those books, or even trying to study them before I got to St. Hill and did the training, then there is a difference. And you know, after the training I may have my way. So now I can say, okay, you have done to me what you have done to me. So fine, and study on my own. But if you start from the scratch, and then if you think of getting audited, well, what do you think about auditing? There have been quite a lot of implications in all sorts of situations that signal it can be a deception. I know it's a difficult question because in this lifetime I have never undergone auditing in the sense of the standard auditing, like you do it, you have the bridge, like you go from one step to another. I had some taste of it during my volunteer minister course. One boy wanted to do his practical, and the supervisor asked me if I could help him. So if I wanted to get audited, or if I wanted to have some experience in auditing, biometrics auditing, or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, I wanted to help the boy to do his practical. So I agreed, and that was a total failure, and I was left in this terrible state afterwards. So I hated it. I positively hated it. But on the whole, I do believe in it. I mean, it appeals to me on the cognitive level, and I think that the problem we might be facing is the gap between the actual competence and the process and what it takes and the demands on statistics. So I believe that it's quite probable that the church people have gone so low in their ethical standards that they have started auto-taking so that they would get the stats which are expected from them. And that might cause the situation where the deception really takes place, because the process as such might involve a lot of time and high competence, and the people audited might not be that easy to go through the processes. So there might be, and the auditor who is advanced doing the work for the person audited. But then this is not the competence of the person audited, but the competence of the auditor. So the person gets through. I mean, you can even imagine the situation where the person goes through some procedure, and then the person sits there holding the cans, and the floating needle is created by the person checking if the person gets the floating needle, so that they would get the stats. And this is obviously very irresponsible, and this is auto-taking, but I do think that this can be taking place. Well, that's a serious irregularity, wouldn't you say, if not crime? Well, I would say so. As I said, that I have problems with the Church of Scientology, and we, but still, you cannot. You do need the people and the competence to go through those processes. So do you get my point? I mean, if there is you and there is your best friend, and you both are interested in Scientology, and you trust that you can, on the basis of the study of the materials, do those things, don't get some concepts that help you in life, but actually do those things. But still, it can be dangerous, because that there can be a collapse during the auditing, because all sorts of things can be happening, and then you need the environment, you need the safe place. So it's not so easy. All right. Does Scientology or the Church of Scientology control your life? Could you decide? Could you define the word control? Well, how would you define the word? The Scientology word? The Scientology way? Well, it's the start, change, and stop of a process. So if you are asking me if the Church of Scientology does the start, change, and stop in my life actions, I would say that I cannot say it with full certainty, but I believe I can do quite a lot myself. And there are other powers involved too. So I always give the example of someone. I'm not sure if I actually fell to the ground, but someone hit my leg, but there was no one here, of course. But and then I have the real situation of the stop when I was dancing, and suddenly I could not make another movement. So the powers in my life are so potent. And there are so many of them right now. It's very difficult to decide who does what. On the whole, I think that I'm quite independent of the church control because I'm very ethical. So I do not have overs against the church as such. I'm not the perfect Miss Wonderful Agusia. And I must irritate them on many occasions a lot, for example today, because I don't, I'm not that obedient, and I decide about certain things and do them. And this is one aspect. So I do believe that I have a certain area of control, even with the scale of involvement of the church. But on the other hand, I do believe that the church has done quite a lot in terms of controlling other people who don't have that ethical level, who perhaps have drunk some alcohol recently, who have been taking drugs, who have been in a worse condition on the whole, who have not had the knowledge I have, and that creates problems for me because this is like okay, so you have this wonderful pack of wolves. Well, why don't you set them on Agnieszka and boom, here they go. And then Agnieszka is like Buddha saying, "You live in harmony." Well, and then there is the physical impact of all sorts of things that can be done to the body actually. So you do feel that the Church of Scientology is controlling your life. I feel that there are many parties involved in attempts at control of my life. But on the other hand, this is what I have learned in Scientology, that you have your purpose and you are working towards it. And my purpose is the creation of the noble kingdom of Nicoletania. And this is what I wanted to do in my life for the rest of it. Apart from having my family, so if you ask about control, certainly the Church of Scientology has participated in making it impossible for me. But as far as this process of the creation goes, well, I keep on creating it, and I know that they are stealing my work from me and messing up with my reputation and the pack thing. So let me rephrase the question again. Does the Church of Scientology in your opinion try to decide about your life for you? Well, certainly they do. Okay. So how do you feel about it? Well, I feel that they have gone down in their ethics level. And does it not discourage you from, I don't know, Scientology and it does not discourage me from Scientology, but that makes me very cautious concerning the church. So this is why I assigned the Church of Scientology the condition of treason and actually communicated it. I communicated it to the church and I communicated it in public too, because you know, when I was saying the Church of Scientology is wonderful, then I need to unsay it somehow, because it might be wonderful, but currently it's unethical, so it creates a danger. Right. Have you ever expressed, okay, so this is the question I have prepared, it somehow connects with what you have been saying. Let me read the question then. Have you ever expressed any criticism concerning Scientology or the church? If yes, how was it received by the church people? So there are two situations. The situation in the group and the situation out of the group. When I have no idea, but I can deduce they do not love me too much. But let's try to think of the group. I had this terrible confrontation with a top officer, the person responsible for suppression during the recruitment, the SEAL recruitment process at St. Hill in 2003, and after that I think they created what they call a spin, I think. So, you know, I was supposed to go mad. And got rid of me in terrible circumstances. So can you say, so what does it mean, terrible circumstances? Well, they put guards around. Apart from all the things that were done to my mind, I'm not sure what was being done to my body, but I think there was something serious done to my body too. I don't have the access to the technical knowledge concerning the changes to the body, but the situation of, you know, overall pressure when you have guards next to you, and you know, they were going through some processes, and I do remember me sitting there in front of the person responsible for the qualification, sending this talk. I trusted you. So, you know, this was really the state where I was totally terrified by what I was seeing around me. And then I was informed in the evening that I was leaving the base and England, actually. So not only St. Hill, but England next day. Well, you know, the overall, I ran to the RTC box to leave the note. I think they are trying to get rid of me. And I left a note, an official note with my ethical officer, saying that if I were to leave now, I would be cut off from the source. So this is unethical, they cannot do it. Well, I was not cut off from the source, obviously. But these are the circumstances. And then there was the guard sitting behind the door throughout the night. And, you know, we had a room, and there were many people sleeping there in their places, of course. But it was a sort of common room. You know, behind the door there is the guard, because, you know, I'm the dangerous person and nobody knows what I'm going to do. Or perhaps there were other reasons. Now it came to my mind that I might have been in danger, so maybe I was to leave England for totally different reasons. It has just surfaced in my mind. But you know, I was not informed about what was happening, so that was totally terrifying. So you know, this felt pretty much like the result of this confrontation when I said to the high officer, "You are responsible for suppressing me. You suppressed me into joining this year." I am not sure if I told him then that you knew I was. I think I told it to someone else. You knew I was in love with this man or something. I know that I did mention this point too, and you know you blocked the possibility of this love. And I learned that he was dating someone else. Anyway, so this is what I learned from Mathilde. So these were the confrontations concerning my particular case, that is the overall situation that was not resolving positively, and the very serious accusation of suppression, because suppression in the Church of Scientology is a crime, it's a high crime, especially when it happens during the recruitment process. So do you feel they actually punished you for it? I think they did. I think they did, but you know, I have a new doubt right now because it's come in our conversation actually. I had never had this thought earlier, so I must view it in a new perspective. All right, Agnieszka. And other criticisms. I think that I did question some order. So on the whole, do you feel that it is okay to criticize people in the Church of Scientology when you are there? I mean, are you asking me about my attitude to it or about the reception? Both. From my point of view, obviously, there's the technology of plus points and out points. So if something is an out point, you normally write a report. An out point, it means that something should be somewhere and it's not there, or something shouldn't be somewhere and it is there. So for example, I don't know, if you feel that your supervisor is suppressing you, then you can write a report concerning this. Or if you feel that I don't know, the person delivering a spot check, which is checking if you have understood the text by asking for the definitions of the words in the text. If you feel that this person is not really doing the job, just, you know, okay, you asked me so I can ask you a few questions, but to be honest, I don't care because I have my study. So if you feel that something like that is happening, so there should be, you know, the involvement, the purpose of checking if you have really understood the text by checking if you understand all the words. And you know, it's done just like, okay, done, and then you also write a report. So you feel that criticism in the church is okay. I believe that it depends whom you target and how you do it. You know, there's the technology point concerning the people you criticize actually. So if there's a very productive person and if you become critical about that person, so you say that this person has done this or that, then you get a problem because you become a target of investigation. So this is actually the technology point, because there is the data saying that productive people are attacked by suppressive people. So you can get in trouble. So for example, when I started being critical about Tom Cruise, immediately I became a target. So, I mean, probably there are more people like Tom Cruise. Well, I think Tom Cruise is unique. Alright, you're probably right, but there are many people who have these powerful positions in the church, so this is a slightly sick situation, don't you think? Like, I mean, you can do nothing about them. Well, actually, there's a technology point that the person who is a tycoon, or not a tycoon, I don't remember what it is called, but the name comes from the East, and this is about the person who is very, very powerful, and the power comes from this person being totally productive, which presupposes that the person is ethical. And there's actually the line saying that if that person commits a minor offense, like a minor offense or minor crime, minor offense, I think, like for example, gets involved in a romance or a relationship with a minor, then the person is forgiven, because they have this position. So do you think that this is a kind of accepted pedophilia in the technology? Well, I think that it might result in that, as a matter of fact, because I mean, imagine the person who has this power, because the person is utterly productive, and what can you do? So what can you do, Agnieszka? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I have never said that I agree with all that has been written by Ellen Rage. Alright. So perhaps we could take a break here. It's only 5 questions, but it's a start.